Happy, beautiful, amazing day. Dr. Bob Rakowski here with this edition of the Dr. Bob Rakowski podcast. I have a beautiful, amazing, powerful, and empowering guest, Miss Julie Wilcoxson, who has been on an amazing journey, which, by the way, I'm going to have her share her story in a moment. But Ed Milet, I love his quote. He says, the person that we're in the best position to help is the person we used to be. So, Julie, welcome. Who are you? And where are you going?
Hi, Dr. Bob. Thank you very much. I am a nutrition therapy practitioner and a personal trainer. I've owned a personal training business for, 25 years now. I suffered from PCOS and endometriosis, so I decided to go back to college to learn more in-depth things about nutrition and how to lose the stubborn weight. And that's kind of what started my journey of where I am today.
Okay, let's just fill in a few gaps for people that may not be in on the lingo. PCOS, Polycystic Ovarian Syndrome. What was going on? What were you experiencing? How did you find out? And then maybe what did you do about it?
Oh, I went. I had 2 miscarriages. Had a hard time getting pregnant. Then got pregnant, had to take progesterone shots. Still, there was no title to it because my oldest is 28. So it took a while before they realized what that was. Finally kept the pregnancy, got pregnant again, then couldn't have a third one. That's when you started hearing about polycystic ovarian syndrome. So I begged my doctor to be tested. But since I didn't meet the criteria of being obese, he wouldn't test me. So I suffered with it for 10, 15 years. Started getting cystic acne, skin tags that I kept getting removed. Didn't know that was part of it. Finally moved from Florida to Tennessee. A doctor there listened to me, tested me, and I was off the charts with polycystic. So later learned that really still no answers to why, as a trainer, working out 5 days a week, eating clean, like I was told, I gained 30 pounds. Was suffering with the acne, hormonal issues, put on birth control, all the typical things. Nobody could tell me why I couldn't lose weight. It was basically, this is the hand you were dealt. Here's spironolactone, here's metformin, here's birth control. Go on, come back every month for a refill. So I went back to college to learn. I went back to school at 45 to learn more about nutrition because I figured being a dietitian, I would know all the answers. And it was more of the same. Nothing was working. Because of being in school with learning that stress has a big impact on blood sugar, I got up to 200 pounds, and my blood pressure, which is normally like 117, went up to 130, and I was offered Ozempic, and that was all I got with that. So I got very angry and was like, I'm done. Started another school for holistic nutrition where I started to learn that PCOS is blood sugar and insulin. It is stress. It is so many things that factor into that. Dropped 23 pounds in 1 month of just inflammation. And then in 3 months, I got back to my high school weight, feel great, energy, skin tags magically disappeared. And I have more energy, and I'm now 50, a grandmother of 4, and feel wonderful.
Well, and one, I wouldn't have guessed that you were 50, right? How wonderful, how well you wear that. I'm gonna add a picture of PCOS to the stage because that should be a smooth, beautiful ovary with, when a young girl's born, she has 3 million eggs, and those eggs are gonna create a human. But you look at all those cysts on those ovaries. It messes up all the hormones for sure. It is often caused by prediabetes, insulin resistance, and believe it or not, it actually causes androgen problems. And that's why you were getting that cystic acne, infertility. There's just things that don't serve the population to have that. And there are several things that can cause it. It's strongly associated with obesity. This is for our listeners, but it can be related to estrogen toxicity and prediabetes or insulin resistance. You also had endometriosis.
Yes.
So tell our listeners about endometriosis.
That is like an overgrowth on, it can actually be anywhere in your body, but mainly on the endometrial lining. I feel it had to do with years of being on birth control because that does mess with your cycle. You're not really having cycles monthly. and things like that. But since I kind of reversed the PCOS and got my hormones and all that in order, I have no issues with it whatsoever. So everything just kind of correct course. Once you get to the root cause of what's causing the issues, things kind of play out a little bit better. You'll see the health benefits of it.
So what was your cause?
My cause of blood sugar. Mine was definitely blood sugar. Yes. I ate carbs to keep the energy up. I've seen a dietitian. She told me, eat more carbs. I did that, and I just spiraled. And then stress, I don't handle stress well. And being in school with your daughters having babies, it was a lot. And running a business, it was a lot.
Sure. I tell people there was an article entitled "The Deadly Quartet." And from a medical model, they said if you had high blood pressure, pre-diabetes, high cholesterol, and, or had high body fat, you were going to die early. But those are all symptoms of the real deadly quartet: stress, toxins, malnutrition, physical inactivity. The one you didn't have was physical inactivity. You were physically active back then. That probably kept you from being obese. But that just goes to show you someone can train hard, but their body may be breaking down on the inside. And unless you really pay attention and look, you may not find it.
Exactly. I learned that I actually only go to the gym 3 days a week now. And then I do sprints twice a week, and I walk a lot. Like, I've learned to, when you're stressed and that cortisol hormone goes up, it affects insulin and all of that. So you have to learn to calm the body. And even working out, your body can see as a stressor. So you've got to learn to keep it calm.
You know what? My webinar just before this was on the stress reset. Are you familiar with what I call the stress reset?
I've heard different things about it, but not your view on it.
Well, I've been doing it for a long, long time now. I give people every waking hour a combination of melatonin, which, by the way, blocks the brain's drive of stress on the adrenals; theanine, which is a natural GABA facilitator, crosses the blood-brain barrier; and then the Ganoderma spores, which by multiple mechanisms, but maybe the most powerful is it actually reduces the amount of circulating stress hormones in the body. So you say you were training. So tell me about your diet. What kind of carbs were you eating? Were you eating terrible, or were you just not having the right balance of macros for you?
I was having avocado toast in the morning. I very much undereating protein by a lot.
Okay.
And I would have one egg on my, gluten-free toast with some avocado. And then for lunch was usually a salad with grilled chicken, not enough fat in my diet whatsoever. And I was snacking. I was trained in the module, that you eat every 2.5, 3 hours to stabilize your blood sugar. But I quickly learned that was keeping my blood sugar, keeping those, peaks and valleys happening all throughout the day. So, and then I would have, regular dinner, and I always had, 2 cups of coffee a day. I still keep that going on with the right coffee. And now I eat a lot more protein, a lot more fats, and more fruits and vegetables, and like sourdough, probiotic kind of foods.
Well, since you mentioned the right coffee, that's a good segue. So, you and I are both fans of the world's best organic coffee infused with reishi mushroom, bettercoffeeshop.com. By the way, reishi is proven against to resolve or help resolve PCOS. It also can be helpful for endometriosis, which we're going to get to in just a moment. Bettercoffeeshop.com. Go for it. Take the 1 box challenge. But this endometriosis issue, you said it could be anywhere in the body. What's so interesting is, the ovaries are in the abdominal cavity, the uterus is in the pelvic cavity, and God knew what he was doing when he made the body. I know I can share that words with you, and you're not going to be offended by it. But somehow there's a gap between the ovaries and what's called the fallopian tubes and the fimbriae. So there's an opening, and women each month can have what's called retrograde menstruation. Some of the lining of the uterus that is blood rich and nutrient rich, because if an egg gets implanted, we want everything there to grow a healthy baby. Some of it gets into the abdominal cavity, and it takes an intact immune system to clear it out. But here's another interesting thing. The enemies of the immune system are stress and sugar. So, it didn't sound like you were doing too much sugar, but way too many carbs.
Yes.
So you mentioned not enough protein. By the way, meat, egg, and milk, top proteins. Mm-hmm. Not enough fat. Nuts and seeds are my favorite sources there. Not seed oils, but nuts and seeds. And by the way, good high quality animal fat. But tell me about what changes did you make that had the biggest difference?
One thing I learned with adrenals was when I drank regular coffee, I would have that on an empty stomach first thing, and that bothered my adrenals. So I would notice when I wore a glucose monitor to really learn what was affecting, that was a big one. So since you mentioned the King coffee, I can drink that on an empty stomach, and that does not have an effect on me. Yes, I love it, love it, love it. Can't speak enough about it. Now I eat about 4 eggs in the morning, sometimes 3 and a small steak, and like an orange or, some kind of in-season fruit. And then for lunch is usually a burger or chicken. I always make sure I'm having at least 30 grams of protein, at least in my meals. I aim for about a gram of protein per pound of body weight. So that has been a significant change. Took away all processed foods, seed oils, 100%, so inflammatory. And then for dinner, I usually have steak or salmon or something like that with a fresh vegetable. I do a lot of fermented vegetables too.
Good for you. I mean, that's rock solid nutrition advice. So people that may not be familiar with size or volume of protein, look at your own fist, right? I probably weigh a little more than Julie, so I probably have a bigger fist. And I have people that weigh a lot more than me, and they have fists as big as my head. So you want to have a fistful of protein with every meal, preferably some type of meat, egg, milk. I love the idea that you said fruit and season. We want to eat food that spoils, but before it does.
Yes.
And so when you're talking about a hamburger, now you can put it on a bun, or is there anything special about that bun?
No, I always eat grass-fed, regenerative farming. I'm very particular of where I source my food from, but I put it on a plate with some cheese on top, some fermented veg on the side, and eat it with a fork.
I love it. That's how I do it as well. So let me ask you, who is your typical patient? This woman that you're going to empower. Tell me her name, just what's her demographic? How would you describe her? What is she experiencing, and how are you going to help her?
My typical demographic, I call her Laura, my avatar. She's in her mid-40s. She has a business. She's a very busy mom with raising young kids. She runs a business, and she is suffering from metabolic issues, but doesn't quite know it. She's tired. She's drinking a lot of caffeine, snacking throughout the day, trying to get that energy boost, usually hitting that 3 o'clock slump, not getting enough sleep, snacking, but still not eating enough. Like, it's mainly carbs because you're going for that energy boost without realizing the effect of nutrition. And then not sleeping well at night, has menstrual cycle issues, low libido, brain fog is a huge one that I deal a lot with. And then that stubborn weight gain, a lot of cardio, thinking that's the answer. Eat less, exercise more, which is something that we're always taught. So that's typically the woman that comes to me that I work with.
Well, and by the way, what you just described is most of the people I know in their 40s, right? Maybe they're not, they don't have a business of their own. It's the real proactive ones that say, I can try to balance this with exercise, but suddenly they realize they're fighting a losing battle. So is there a tipping point for the typical one that they finally say, okay, is enough, or did they see something that you put out there that said, wow, she did it, I can do it? How are they finding you? Usually
referrals. I put out a lot of content, and sometimes the messaging hits and sometimes it doesn't. So most of my people come from referrals because they've heard social media and everything you read and friends tell you, it gets confusing. So most women are not trusting anything anymore. So they're afraid to try that one more thing that's not going to work. So I find referrals, and my clients who've seen transformations, they talk to their friends, and that's how people come to me.
And you know what? I'm going to encourage everybody. That's how I built my practice as well. And one, you're going to get a better patient that way.
Yes,
because if they come in and they've helped someone, they're probably going to have an idea that there's hope. And I'm trying to think who said it first. Maybe it was Zig Ziglar. If there's hope in the future, there's power in the presence. And then very, very simply, okay, if they did it, you can do it too. Right. So there's that idea that it's possible. And that's really what people want, right? They want reasonable proof that their efforts are going to pay off. So what are some practical steps that women can take to balance their blood sugar?
I would tell them, number one, learn how to handle stress. There's all kinds of things on YouTube. You can learn tapping, deep breathing. We just do not breathe during the day. Don't snack as much, which in the beginning, if you eat 5 to 6 meals a day, you're not going to be able to cut to 3. You're going to mess with your blood sugar and you're going to have dips and you're not going to feel good. So just try to ease back on those meals to where you can get to 3, 4 top solid meals a day and increase your protein and fat. Get rid of the seed oils, the processed foods that are doing you a lot of harm. And lastly, get outside. We are inside all the time under blue light and stuff. We need to get out in nature, walk, just gentle movement. Doesn't always have to be high intensity cardio stuff. Just walk, basics.
Yeah, you had so much wisdom and so many tips that are powerful within there that I want to unpack them. So first and foremost, what's this deal with blue light?
Oh, there's a lot of new science that I'm still diving into of learning that when we're under blue light all the time, it messes with your circadian rhythm, which is your sleep-wake cycle. And we're on computers and our smartphones late until the night. So we're not making as much the melatonin. We're not getting those good sleep hormones in there. And it will affect your blood sugar. Some people can get that nighttime effect with high cortisol and blood sugar dips.
And it might be the most insidious toxin, right? Because we're always exposed, all these screens, they all have it. And there's some emerging data that somehow, some way, it was known that melatonin would be that the blue light would be very disruptive to ultimately brain chemistry or brain function. Now, still in the category of conspiracy theory, but I heard a joke in 2020. What's the difference between a conspiracy theory and a fact? Well, they said about 6 months. Look, I don't know what's real or not, but I know that blue light is not good, whether it was intentionally bad or not. What about getting outside? What about sunshine? What about earthing? What about fresh air?
Yes. See, that's perfect because that's going to help that circadian rhythm. It's the way naturally we're supposed to do it. And nature, getting back to nature is always the best fundamental thing.
So what about this Arctic wave that came across? Are you still recommending people go outside when it's minus 30, or tell me about
I do. I'm a Florida girl. I hate the cold, but living in Tennessee, especially this last month, has been terrible. But you can bundle up and you don't have to go outside real long. Just a couple minutes, 5-10 minutes. Just sit out there, bundle up, just let the sun hit your face. Try to be barefoot so that you feel the grounding of the earth and you can reset your body.
It can make an absolutely magnificent difference. I might just ask you, have you played with grounding mats, grounding sheets, anything like that?
That was the biggest Christmas present this year. I've got both my daughters, and then we got a grounding mat for our bed. And it's because my one dog sleeps with us and he has anxiety, but he's even sleeping better. It was huge.
Well, we actually bought a grounding mat and a pulsed PMF mat for a dog that we had that was critically ill. And we have no doubt that it made the final months better.
Yes.
And the nice thing is with animals, there's no such thing as placebo. If you do an intervention and they respond, you have a pretty good idea that it was good. And in fact, it was after that I got myself a PEMF pulse electromagnetic field device, as well as grounding mats and grounding sheets. So pretty amazing there. So tell me about exercise.
So as a personal trainer, I truly believe in resistance training. Like you need to work those muscles because that takes up that glucose too. It helps. Like if you eat a high carb meal, it's great to have movement afterwards. So walk outside, do squats, do push-ups on a counter if that's where you're at. But I do believe we need to have good resistance training, lift as heavy as you can because we're all different. We all have different strength levels. And I truly believe in sprints. Once or twice a week, 10 minutes top. It can be on an assault bike. It can be, and a sprint is going to be different between me and you, what our speed is, and just start where you're at. But
how many seconds for a sprint? You're not talking about sprinting for 10 minutes.
No, 10 seconds, but just do like 6 to 8 in 10 minutes. Sorry. Yes. Just 10 seconds. That's all you need. Exert that effort.
So there's an author that really is part of a very powerful movement. I'll think of her name in a moment. I think her first name is Gabrielle, but it's muscle-centered healthcare, muscle-centric healthcare.
Lyons, Gabrielle Lyons?
Yep,
Yes.
Gabrielle Lyons. And so we know that every cell of the body is potentially in communication with every other cell. Well, now they found out that muscles have more than 700 signaling molecules that impact every single cell and system of the body. And it was published over 20 years ago. The study was called Biomarkers 2000, Tufts University. And they found out that muscle mass was the top factor in healthy aging. Mm-hmm. Now, when we get to women, let's face it, you are the petite species, and osteoporosis, osteopenia. I see so many women over 50 that are being diagnosed with bone loss. But in fact, here's a fascinating statement, Julie. I have yet to see a petite female over the age of 50 that hasn't been told after a bone scan that they had at least osteopenia, thinning of bone, or osteoporosis, bone loss. And I believe that the standards are set up to try to put these women on drugs, hormones or other types of drugs. And reality is, we know that there are over 200 proteins in bone. We know there are dozens of minerals in bone. And we know the best way to build bone is to stay healthy and exercise hard.
Yes. I just started reading study on myokines. It was talking about the peptides that are helping with the muscle. Yeah. And you want to work those large muscles to age gracefully and to be able to be independent in your life.
The most famous one, I believe, is called brain-derived neurotrophic factor. And contracting the muscles make the brain better. So your sprint, there was an article published years ago that found that learning was 20% faster after intense physical activity. And so notice what you said. You don't need to dedicate an hour. Hey, how about 10 minutes twice a week? Mm-hmm. Now you're going to do a 10-second sprint. And how long are you going to recover? And how many of those sprints are you going to do?
I usually recover for 60 seconds after. So usually triple the time that you are working out or more. It depends on where you're at. And I only do 6 to 8.
Okay, good.
I mean, that's it. Yep, twice a week.
My son, who's a fitness fanatic, and he's young, he's only 31 at this point, but he had read something that he shared with me. He says, Dad, I read somewhere that there's something like 97% of people never sprint after the age of 30.
It's sad. It's
wow.
Really sad. Yeah.
Yeah. So here's the deal. Use it or lose it. If you haven't been sprinting, maybe get a good trainer, maybe start a little slow, but why don't we make that a goal that you can handle the sprint after a good warm up, and benefit from it.
And a good beginning way is to do it uphill when you're learning, because you're not going to go as fast. So that will help you a little bit, because it can be a fast walk, can be your sprint at this moment. And that's okay. There's no shame in that.
Yep. Now I live in Houston where there are almost no hills, but you can get a sled or even push your car. So the more resistance that's required, so whether it's against gravity or whatever, believe it or not, it's going to shorten your stride and you're not going to pull a hamstring. Now, here's a fun tip, and I didn't realize this till I first worked with a very elite Olympic speed coach, but they would have the athletes run downhill to learn to handle a longer stride and greater speed. Makes sense. Uphill would be the opposite, learning to handle a shorter stride and lesser speed.
Yes.
What other type of workouts do you like?
I love anything that's, I have horses, so I sling hay, you're throwing feed. So I like things that actually require what you do in daily movement. So I love any kind of sled pushes, sled pulls. I love kettlebell swings, squats, lunges, band work. A lot of times with women, aesthetically, we work on the glutes, but that's a big muscle. And I always say you're only as strong as your weakest link. So if your glutes aren't strong or your core, everything else is going to react the same way. It's going to be weak. So doing, lunges and band work and the simple exercises like clamshells with bands and sidewalks with bands, those are important. But sometimes we go for the cooler movements or always the bigger movements, but you have supporting muscles too that have to be worked in every angle. So I like to work sideways, forward, backwards, all the angles.
I mean, that sounds brilliant. Now, if someone wants to train with you, are there virtual options?
Yes, I have a fitness app that's on my website that they can go and download that. I'll customize their workout. I have a couple different plans for nutrition guidance with it, or they just want to work out.
Well, let's pick 3 different starting points then. Someone's going to come to you and they say, what do you have available, right? I just know I don't feel as good as I want to feel. Give me 3 options, ABC. What would you give as your options for moving these people forward?
I have a couple things as far as nutrition. I have a health audit where they can fill out an extensive nutrition analysis, and it'll kind of tell me where some of their imbalances and stuff are. And then I send them back an hour-long video explaining what's going on, what systems of their body are kind of needing support, asking for support, and some ways to do that. Then I have one-on-one private coaching where there's an 8-week option, a 12-week option, where we get personalized, go through all their prescriptions, every supplement they're taking, what their lifestyle is. And we go through my basic 8 foundations, which is sleep, exercise, stress, eating, environment, all of those things. And then I just launched a course, which is an 8-week course that's self-paced, where they're learning all the foundations. And then I have a Facebook group where they can communicate with me and ask questions, where I can help them where they need some individualized help with that.
Well, that's absolutely brilliant. When you start looking at that, most people know that they need to change. They don't know how, so they need to be led through it. Most people want to be better yesterday, but if you create the framework where they have 8 or 12 weeks and they make that level of commitment, I would imagine that you have a profoundly powerful success rate with what you've outlined being so thorough. So what would you say? 95%, 97%? I don't want to throw a number in your head of percent of people. What percent of people that come to you actually achieve what they want to achieve?
Oh, I'm about 99% of the ones that do it. It is like in 8 weeks, most of my people in 8 weeks are losing over 20 pounds. And in a couple weeks, the inflammation just in their face is amazing at how much it changes in the brain fog. That's what you typically hear. The weight is just dropping off. It's not hard, which weight loss shouldn't be hard. It's usually hard because your body is sick. It needs help. It needs some support. So once it heals, the weight will drop off very easily.
Yeah, I would certainly agree. And do you recommend our reishi infused coffee for each of these wonderful customers and clients?
Always. I'm usually drinking it during my Zoom calls, so I get asked a lot of questions about it for sure.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Julie, what is the best way for people to reach you?
Usually through my website or Instagram. I'm very, very active on Instagram as Jules Wilcoxson. And my website is transformations4life.com.
Yeah, what a perfect name, transformations4life.com. I like that you made it plural. People are going to change form. They're going to go from not being where they want to be to more of what they want to be every single day.
Yes.
Any words to wrap up with as we finish this epic recording, which I know is going to impact so many?
I would say don't give up. If you're struggling right now, don't always believe that you're stuck. This is just the hand you were dealt. This is your body. Symptoms are a good thing. We don't want to mask them. That's the body's way of communicating. We just have to learn to listen and understand what it's asking.
Well, I'm going to go with Ed Milet again. He said, the person you're in the best position to help is the person you used to be. So you were that person that was overweight, that was fatigued, that thought they were doing the right things, and by most standards were, but weren't getting any answers, and you had to think outside the box, look outside the box. Now the box is expanding. People are getting more awareness, and I feel so blessed to be connected to you because I know that you're going to lead so many to better, and better people make for a better world. So with that said, I'm Dr. Bob Rakowski, absolutely knowing that we can all be happy, healthy, and successful. So enjoy this epic, beautiful day, and God bless.